Welcome back, players. I'm Jack with 36 Cancel, and this is Coco the Weiss Cat. So recently, because of the COVID situation, Bushiroad issued a challenge to all the players stuck at home who couldn't go out and play Weiss. Basically, can you refresh your deck on turn 1? Here are the basics. You'll prepare a 50-card deck just like normal. Then you'll shuffle up, so no deck stacking. Once you've got your deck prepped, you can put any number of cards from your deck into your stock. The fewer the cards you put in your stock, the harder the challenge is. You'll open the game by drawing 5, performing the mulligan if you want, and then playing out your first turn. That means drawing, clocking, playing cards, all the way to the end phase. If you level up to 2 during this turn, or you don't refresh your deck, you fail the challenge. Also, refreshing with cards like Soul Salvation Aqua doesn't count. A few other stipulations. First, you have no opponent, so card effects that deal with your opponent's deck, stage, clock, stock, hand, or characters are ignored. If your opponent has to make a choice because of a card effect, you'll make it in their stead. Second, there's no opponent to deal damage to, so nothing about your opponent taking damage will have any effect. And finally, if you refresh at 1/6 and have to level up to level 2 after the refresh, it's still a success because you refreshed before you hit level 2. Now, it's also not specified, but since this is the opening turn, I assume only one attack is allowed, thus only letting you trigger one card. So when I first read this, I thought it was kind of boring, but a few days later, I was at work and bored out of my mind, so I considered how you would do this. Obviously, this challenge is very possible if you give yourself a lot of stock. If you give yourself like 10 stock to work with, most any set can do this if you just load a deck with a bunch of brainstormers, or even just one repeatable brainstormer. But the less stock you use, the more difficult the challenge is. So what do you need to do if you don't give yourself enough stock to just brainstorm your deck away? Well, many sets have level 0 Akatsuki's, which can really help. In fact, if you take the normal Konosuba deck and add the Salvage Brainstormers and give yourself a few stock to work with, a turn 1 refresh is very possible. You only need to brainstorm 1 or 2 times, plus the Ambush Union effect to mill the deck out and keep your hand full of stuff you can discard to your nuisance Megabeans, and the challenge basically wins itself. The same goes for Fate, where the Master's deck has both Salvage Brainstormers and level 0 Akatsuki's to recur them. Now, one other interesting thing about Fate is that it has a Shiro that gives all your Masters Clock Encore. If you play a Master over a Master with Shiro on the board, you can choose to Clock Encore either character every time they hit the waiting room. You can use this to mill an additional 12 cards for basically no cost, and of course without hitting level 2, lest we lose the challenge. But this does give us a way to clock ourselves to level 1 at will, thus giving us access to level 1 cards to do the challenge with. So that being the case, this opens up a lot more options, and that made me wonder, can I complete the turn 1 refresh challenge with no stock at all? Well, I ran some numbers and imagined some scenarios, and then I came home and poured over some sets for fringe commons and uncommons, and I came up with an idea, and it turns out you absolutely can. It just takes a very specific deck. Now, it should be said that if you construct a theoretical deck with a theoretical opening hand and stack the deck the way you need to hit what you want, the challenge gets meaningless very quickly. Sure, there are some ways to do this with no stock in 2 or 3 different sets, but they require a very specific opener and very specific results of brainstorming and top checking. And yes, some sets like No Game No Life can stock charge at level 0 from hand, meaning you can brainstorm without starting stock. In fact, No Game No Life was the original set I was looking at for this challenge. The meme deck I featured about a year ago on this channel is actually ideal for it. If you start with no stock but stock charge yourself twice and brainstorm twice, hitting a minimum of 5 climaxes and searching out 4 little Werebeast Girl Izunas and a Blood Destruction combo Izuna, you can use the little Werebeast Girl's Accelerate ability to take 20 cards off the top of your deck. Combined with the 8 brainstorm and the 5 searches and the 3 from the top check Izuna combo and 1 attack, that's 37 cards. And if you draw 5, pitch 5, and draw another 5, then draw and clock for the turn, that's how many cards are left in your deck, thus completing the challenge. But this is all theoretical. I could sit and draw hands with this deck for months and still never get the correct setup. But is there a deck where I can consistently refresh turn 1 with just a few tries on a randomly shuffled deck? Well, after doing some tweaking and testing, this is what I came up with. Before I break it down, let me cut to an actual recording of me executing this plan. Okay, so I've got my 50 card deck here. I'll draw my first 5. First thing I'm going to do is pitch the 5 so I can move through as many cards as possible. So we'll take these, group them up, and put them into my waiting room and over my hand. This looks pretty usable. Let's draw my first card. We're going to clock this Kyrie and draw 2. Yep, that's very usable. So we'll play this Devilish Smile Rin, play our Mill 3 Rin. Before I play her, I got to mill my 3 actually. Now I'll play this other Rin, and I declare my intent to play her over that first Rin, since it's the same card, I'll just send her to my waiting room, but this makes something really cool happen. Both these Rins have Rin in their name, so the Devilish Smile Rin gives them both Clock Encore. So I'm going to Clock Encore myself up to 1/6, just to move through as many cards as possible without hitting level 2, and then I'll do the Mill 3 ability of the Rin that I just played. Now I'm going to play Kawaii to top check another 4. Good, we found another Mill Rin, put that in our hand. And now we're going to play Encounter on a Rainy Day. This top checks 4 for a blue character. Found an Ilya, add that to hand. Whoops. Never mind that. Put those in our waiting room. And now we have a caster in our hand here that actually discard bonds for encounter on a rainy day, so we'll play that, pitch the Ilya, and grab encounter on a rainy day back to our hand. Now these Chop Check events actually are hand parity, so we don't lose cards by playing them. They're 1-for-1, which is really good for us because hand size is an issue when we're doing the whole no stock thing. So I found another one. We'll do it again. We'll pitch the Rin since she only mills 3, and this will mill 4 for us if I do the effect. Find encounter on a rainy day. Play it. Mill another 4. We found another caster. Amazing. Put these in our waiting room, and we only have 3 cards left in our deck, and we have a Coatibulg and a caster. So just for fun, I'm going to pitch the Coatibulg, which is also a top check 4 event, and grab encounter on a rainy day back, and we're going to play it again. We won't be able to top check the first 3 cards because we only have 3 cards left in our deck. However, we have passed the challenge because we are now out of deck on turn 1. 1, 2, 3. I'll add the Illy to my hand. Now, technically, the encounter and bond stays out because it's still resolving, but that's all right. And we take damage. We hit level 2, but that's all right because we refreshed before we hit level 2. And thus, we have passed the challenge with no stock, and that's how you do it. And thus, we have completed Bushiroad's turn 1 refresh challenge with 0 starting stock. At me, Bushi. So just for fun, let's go over the deck. As you can see, it's red and blue. That's because it plays 12 events, 2 of which can only grab red or blue characters. The top check events, Coatibulg and Encounter on a Rainy Day, are very important because they mill our deck without decreasing our hand size, and without stock, we have no way of actually increasing our hand size. So since most Akatsuki effects that help mill out our deck cost hand, this is crucial. But what's really crucial is the suite of 8 Clock Encore level 0s. Shiro and Rin are both masters, and this Shiro gives Clock Encore to all other masters, while this Rin gives Clock Encore to all other Rins and all archers. If you have one of these out and then play 2 masters or 2 Rins, you can play over them and then endlessly encore them using the alternative Clock Encore cost when either one hits the waiting room. It's really fringe, but it does mill an additional 12 cards out for no cost. And more importantly, it brings us to level 1. As long as we can find masters or Rins to encore with, we can mill an additional 12 cards off the top of our deck. And that's on top of the 5 we drew, the 5 we pitched, and the 3 we drew and clocked, which leaves us 25 cards to move through. And with 8 Akatsuki events that mill 4 at no hand cost, 4 actual Akatskis, and 4 level 0s to discard bond for one of the events, on top of cards that mill when they're played anyway, chances are very good. When I recorded that video I showed earlier, that was my 4th try using that version of the deck. So I'd say as long as you know what you're looking for, it'll be pretty easy to pass the challenge with that deck. Honestly, this is way more fun than I expected, and I ended up bouncing a lot of ideas off my friends for other sets like Kantai, Persona, Bang Dream, Love Live, and other stuff I don't play as much, and thus I'm less familiar with the card pool. I'm putting the link to my deck list here and the link to the original challenge from Bushiroad in the description, so check it out. If you can make a deck that passes the challenge with little to no stock, post it in the comments. But I'm also hoping we can put this lame idea of playing Weiss with no opponents behind us soon and get back to our local game stores. Obviously, I don't intend to rush out the moment we get the green light, but I do hope this COVID business is behind us soon so we can get out there and play our favorite game. But for now, stay safe, stay indoors, and practice social distancing. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.